This is the 40th episode of the Effective Executive podcast and YouTube video. And this week, I want to cover 5 thinking skills you need to be an effective executive. And there's a lot of different ways to cut this up, but the first one, obviously, I've talked about this, if not in every video, practically every video or podcast episode that I've done, synthetic thinking. To me, this is the foundational component that every executive needs to have in their skill portfolio. It's not recognized, but it can set you apart so completely, and especially the deeper that you get into it. So, synthetic thinking, systems thinking, versus the analytical thinking, where you break things into pieces. Synthetic thinking is looking at the whole, and from that, you will see completely different things than when you were looking through an analytical. Now, some of you may think that you're systems thinkers. I'll set up a phone call with you and let you know how deep of a systems thinker you are, or synthetic thinker that you are, in about a 30-minute conversation. We could start to identify maybe holes in your learning, but 90% of people have no idea what really synthetic thinking is all about and how to apply it to their particular organization. Optimizing the pieces in with an analytical mind isn't going to give you or your organization a leg up in your career or against the competition. So that's the first thing. And by virtue of getting synthetic thinking, you will improve the understanding of the aim or purpose of your organization. It will become clearer to you and more apparent to you about what your organization is and how it fits in. I take my clients through a step-by-step process in order to achieve that. Okay, second skill you need are decision-making skills. And most of this is about you being able to understand how you make decisions and what tendencies that you have in the way you go about making decisions. And still today, and even maybe a little bit more so today, I'm finding executives, kind of into that mode. There's the indecisive ones, right? Those people drive you nuts too. But there's also those that make a decision and move on. Oh God, the pressure, and finally I made a decision, and now we're moving on from that decision, and that's always a bad idea. You need to make a decision, follow up with it, what's going on with it. But even before you make a decision, one of the things that I see commonly is there aren't enough options on the table. It's usually a binary choice between we either do this one or that one or this one or nothing. And so getting lots of options available for a decision-making process can really help you identify, why this one am I seem to be have a bend towards versus, maybe 7 or 8 other ideas that are out there that maybe you should consider. You have to be critical of yourself and the decisions that are being made. And then another thing is that, most people will go out and have their idea. They really fall in love with it. And then they only look for information and data that supports that idea. Now, if you go to Twitter or really any social media, the constant arguments and conversations are around that from a standpoint of everybody supporting their own argument. Nobody's really looking for someone to poke holes in what their beliefs are. So you have to really be in touch with yourself in order to make good decisions. There's a few other things, but those are 2 big ones. The third skill you need to develop is developing new products and services and ideas in a constant flow, or simpler word is innovation skills. You need to be proactive. You, as an executive, trying to add value to your organization. You have the opportunity to create value by virtue of having a system that you can go through from generating an idea all the way through to market. This is another one of the skills that I teach executives, is that end-to-end process, and it's quite robust. It takes you through with one of my partners that I have that does innovation from very beginning to end, and having something like that in place is extremely important because most industries are being disrupted, and what's a great revenue stream today may be gone in 6 months or a year, depending on the industry you're in, or 5 years. And so there's this need to constantly disrupt and come up with new ideas. So important. A skill, though, that requires as a base, in my opinion, synthetic thinking. Got to start there before you start moving into decision making and innovation, because that in and of itself, the synthetic thinking portion, helps you develop systems and methods that will help you become a better executive and create value for your organization. Fourth thing is executive data analytics. Now, every time I run into an executive in a 30-minute phone call, the first thing they say to me is, I've got a problem. I got to hit my financial goals, for this year, this quarter, this month, whatever it is. And so always seems to be this conversation in the back of an executive's mind as hitting this, and then you dig deeper, and obviously there are bonuses tied to it, and you can go on and on. But the thing to remember, the skill you really need to develop around data analytics, is the realization that the financials are the income statement, the balance sheet, and hitting your targets and all those things are the result of creating value for customers in products and services that you're delivering to them. And the focus on the financials themselves will do you no good other than to cause you great stress. Focusing in on creating a better customer experience, the products, the services, and creating value for customers is the name of the game. The financials will take care of themselves. But you've got to also understand, no matter where you are as an executive in an organization, if you're a CFO, you can't just shut your brain down right now, because you're tied to customers. And if you don't know how you tie to customers, you better learn and understand what creates value for customers. The fifth thing is organizational design. Now, I always leave this for last, because I think if you have good synthetic thinking skills, especially, and then you have decision-making skills and constant flow of new ideas, products and services, and good data analytics, the organizational design falls pretty easily from there, which is most organizations, your competitors, you're looking for a leg up, your competitors are all designed from an analytical mindset. And so if you go out and you begin to develop a synthetic developed organizational design, one that has a view of looking at things customer in to your organization through what I call the customer lens, then you will begin to develop something very different. And once you understand how your thinking lens, through your thinking lens, how do you handle motivation? How do you handle control? How do you handle a number of other things in how you think about things going on in your organization? You develop new theories, you develop a new design for your organization that works better for customers, which I've already stated, by creating a value for customers with the products and services and the experience they get within your organization. The financials will take care of itself. So how do you develop an organizational design that's consistent with that particular thinking? So those were the 5 skills that I believe that an effective executive need. If you'd like a 30-minute conversation just about any of these 5 things, you can go to the95method.com/let's talk, and you will be able to have a conversation. We set up a schedule, a 30-minute conversation, go through each of these 5 things and see how we can help you, or what types of issues that you have, and how this type of thinking might be helpful not only to you as an individual, but maybe to development of your team, and then ultimately your organization. And so you can set that up through that particular link.